Hello BookTube. Hope you're all doing well. I'm doing great, except for one little thing that happened to me. Have you ever had an ocular migraine or an eye migraine? I think that's what they're called. It was the weirdest instance. I was just sitting there watching TV and I started to see these twinkly lights out of one side of my eye. I thought it's maybe just blurry, you know. I kind of like threw some water on. I'm like, I'm still seeing this. I closed my eyes. I'm still seeing this. It literally, someone told me to look it up on the internet, and I literally saw an image of what it looked like, except not in color. I just remember white twinkly lights on like a half curve of this one eye, and it was the strangest, creepiest thing. I'm glad it didn't last that long. Some of my friends said they've had it where it lasted a good 30 minutes to an hour. Some cases, I guess you can get a headache with it, and some cases not, which I didn't. I thought it might be something like triggering a migraine type thing or a migraine coming, but I've never had that before. So I just remember reading about it. So I took some medicine right away and looked, I didn't get anything, but it was a weird feeling. Weird, kind of, I don't know, kind of freaked me out, but if you guys ever had that, let me know. But anyway, like I said, the last video I posted was just a review of a manga that I read. I read the first 4 volumes of it, which was High Rise Invasion by Takahiro Oba. This is the omnibus that contains volume 1 and 2, and then this is the one that contains 3 and 4. If you want to see my thoughts on that, just check out the video. I did a whole review on my thoughts of it. In terms of some of the books I finished, I did finish quite a few. I think it was like 4 items I finished. First one I'll talk about, I read as an ebook. I don't have a physical copy of it, but it's one of my favorite authors who writes horror. Her name is Darcy Coates, and this is The Carrow Hunt. See this woman kind of floating above a staircase. This was probably one of my favorites of hers that I've read so far. It was chilling and creepy all the way through. It had all the right vibes. We follow our main character, Remy. She's kind of a tour guide at the Carrow House, which is a reputedly very haunted house. And she does tours there, never spends the night or anything. Never personally has she experienced any of the events that people have said that they've seen, like, you know, visions of people or doors slamming, or she's never experienced it herself at all. And then she's sort of invited by someone to host a like 7-day long investigation of the house, where they will be spending the nights for that whole entire week in the house itself. And this person wants to bring in like a paranormal investigator and a psychic, and she's a little bit unsure of this because she's never met this person before. She talks it over with the owner of the house. They're intrigued. They also want to be part of that. And this guy says, yeah, sure, you know, invite who you want. We'll have like a, you know, small little gathering of people. She even invites someone who at one time has been a tour guest, you know, so a different perspective as well. So she feels a little bit more comfortable with the whole situation, and they all meet at the house. And she starts to finally experience some of the events that people have talked about in the house, and it starts, you know, being really intriguing. She's always wanted to know more about, you know, this. It's got a dark history, this particular house, and lots of murders have taken place in there. Supposedly people have been buried in there, and so it's kind of a very, very dark history to it. And then a storm blows in, of course, and because it's on this particular house is located like on a smaller island, it's only accessible through a bridge, and it's impossible to pass when there's a storm raging this bad, because the water literally goes right over the bridge. So now they're all, of course, trapped, you know. And it was absolutely fantastic. I loved all the characters, the events that take place. Suddenly you have a death among one of the people that are in her group, and things just spiral. And I highly recommend it if you want to try out one of her books. This is a really, really good place to start, because it held my interest the whole way through. I almost want to pick it up and read it again. I loved it. Further back, I was listening to an audiobook, which I had mentioned, something like 21 or 22 hours long. I knew this was going to be dragging because it was really a tough listen. I originally started out with a physical copy of it. This is Mary Shelley's The Last Man, and I had to turn to the audiobook because when I actually opened the book up to look at the print, I mean, look, it's buried deep in the gutter here, and it's too dense, too small print. It's impossible to read this thing. So I chose an audiobook. It is supposedly described as a brilliant early dystopian tale of classic science fiction, where a plague has hit and we end up with our last man on Earth, Lionel Varney. He is telling the story of the events that took place. But as I had mentioned on some of my reading vlogs that you might have seen in my previous videos, I kept waiting for the mention of plague. It was like, apparently for a, book about the plague, we still hadn't reached it. It's about 40% of the way into the book before you even have any mention of plague in distant lands from where our main character is. And he starts the tale out when he's a young boy, but by the end, he's a grown man who'd had a whole family and everything. And so telling the story is a long way before you even get to the point of this plague attacking. And you follow him and his sister at the very beginning when his father passes away, leaving them orphans, and their struggles and the people they encounter and meet. The son of the king who was once his father's friend, and he blames the king for leaving his father destitute, even though it was his father's fault. He was a gambler and stuff, but apparently his father had reached out to the king and never got a response, and there was some kind of miscommunication, and then he blames the son, but then he and the son become friends, and all these relationships are discussed, and I found it a little tedious because I kept waiting for the main storyline. But looking back on it, when I got further in and those events started to take place, I was more interested. Then I was kind of interested, not more interested, but I was then interested in all those relationships that we had kind of built in the story. So kind of redeemed itself a little bit, but it is a very tough listen and or read in terms of the language. It's interesting. It was written in 1826, and it is set in the future, the year 2100. It is still our future, but as you're reading this, you don't get the sense of it being a futuristic book. I mean, in our heads, we're seeing things like, we're walking around with mobile phones, we have artificial intelligence, we have robots, we have rocket ships, we've gone to the moon, sent up satellites. That wasn't in her, time frame. So to see things for the future, I felt like there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. You don't get a feeling that it's much more futuristic from her time in 1826. I think the most advancements that I see or read about was towards agriculture a little bit, and also faster flying air balloons. That's all I recall that was futuristic. So it never gave me that science fiction kind of feel set for the time frame that she's writing towards. I mean, she was looking very, very far off, and maybe it should have been pulled back a little closer to her time frame in terms of the way she was writing, because it doesn't just come off that way. And it's like I said, it's not something I would highly recommend unless you're really interested in diving deep into her other works to see what else she's had. I mean, Frankenstein's where you'd start. Maybe that's where you'd want to stop. But now that I'm finished with it, I'm glad I did, but it was a real tough to stick with it the whole time. So that's basically my thoughts on it. I don't have much more to say about it. Then I felt like picking up just something light and funny, and in this case, very sweet. Pardon the pun, but this is a cozy mystery, a cookie house mystery. It's called And Then There Were Crumbs by Eve Calder. It was one of my fairly recent book hauls. I just love the picture. This cute little shop in this little town, and that little dog named Oliver, as we come to find out. We follow our main character, Kate McGuire. She's recently lost her restaurant job in Manhattan. She's broken up with her boyfriend who's been cheating on her. She doesn't have a lot of money, but she has a dream. She's always had this dream she thought her boyfriend would be part of, that she convinced him. But now it's something for her to pursue herself, and that was to live in a small little island type town. This particular one, I forgot the name of it, Coral Cay, Florida. She'd read about this, and this was kind of her dream place to maybe one day settle in and have a business of her own, something along this lines. But the only thing she could find in terms of getting an interview was for a seafood restaurant. And as she's heading out there, and her car kind of breaks down, and the guy who comes to her rescue to tow her vehicle says, "You don't want to work there. That place is awful. The food is awful. It's kind of a tourist trap." But he says he has seen a sign on the cookie house for help wanted. Although the owner is a bit kind of a gruff kind of old fellow, and but she says, "Well, she's got a toss-up. She's got a guaranteed interview here. She could take her chances there. She ends up trying this place out. And this little dog here, Oliver, kind of leads her to the place. She's wondering who's this dog belong to. And she thinks, you know, when he heads for this cookie house that it might be there. But apparently he's like the town dog. Everybody owns Oliver. They all have tried to, you know, bring him into their house, but he's just a bit of a roamer. He likes to visit around. He gets treats. He gets fed. He gets brushed out. He gets taken care of by pretty much everybody in the town. So he was like one of my favorite characters. But Sam is the guy who owns the cookie house. Oddly enough, a place that doesn't even serve cookies. He's a widower. His wife was the one who did the baking in terms of the sweets that were there. He did like the breads and bagels and things like that. And when she passed away, he just didn't have the heart to continue that side. And he's just kind of kept up with, like, he's well known for his sourdough and all this stuff. But his help wanted sign isn't for anybody to bake. He just wants someone to deal with the customers. He just wants to stay in the back and do that. He doesn't want to run the till and all that. And that's the job Kate ends up getting. And it's a struggle for her to get him to hire her. But eventually breaks down, hires her, even gives her a little room above the shop, although he's still kind of checking into her background. He's a little worried about her and, you know, can he trust her and all this stuff. She's an interesting character. I liked her. She's described as a cookie whisperer in terms of she could look at somebody and know what their favorite cookie is. A little far-fetched, but I thought that was a cute little twist on it. But then there's this one guy, he's a realtor who comes into the shop. And you can see there's no love lost between this guy and Sam. And to get rid of him, he gives him these, I forget what it was that he had just finished baking, and he just gives it to him to send him on his way. Shortly thereafter, the guy dies, and they find out it's from poisoning. The guy was poisoned. So guess who gets locked up? Sam. And the place is shut down for a bit while they're investigating. She's a bit homeless and ends up staying with a friend of Sam's and becomes good friends with this person. And they decide that they together will, once they're able to, and the scene is cleared to open, they will reopen the shop and help keep the business running while everything else is taken care of. So it's a really great mystery. I love the characters within the little town here. It just had a really perfect, cozy mystery, cozy feel to it. It just made me want to walk up and down this town and meet all these people. And I can't wait to read the next one in this series. So highly recommend it. Really cute. Best character though is Oliver. Moving on from that, I finished... Actually, I just picked this one up and finished it within a couple days. It's a little graphic novel. I saw that it was kind of based on The Walking Dead, and I hadn't heard anything about it, but one of my coworkers said this is actually based on a Walking Dead spin-off video game. And you could actually watch walkthroughs on YouTube. So you could see, you could almost watch it like an anime and follow this storyline about this one main character. And the main character is the title of this book. It's called Clementine. This is book one in the series, and it's by Tilly Walden. And it's kind of a thin little thing here. It's just all black and white. I immediately saw the zombies on the bottom. I thought, ooh, I want to read this, you know. And then, of course, I saw the Walking Dead connection there. And that's when I found out, like I said, from one of my coworkers about the story. And so I don't have time to watch. There's like 4 seasons for some reason of a video game that you can watch on YouTube. You can follow her storyline. Begins when kind of this whole thing kind of starts, and she's alone in a tree house, and this guy named Lee comes by just trying to make his way through the world, figuring out what to do, and he hears this voice up in the tree house asking for help, and the two end up going off kind of together. And then I kind of jumped to another like mid-season one, and then I jumped all the way to the very end because I'm not going to play the video game, but I want to find out her story before I picked up this one, which is a good thing because the way the very last one ends is where this one kind of takes off from because of, well, you can see kind of something that happens to her leg there in the cover. So this opens up with her kind of just on her own. That leaves a gap between what I saw in the last video game and this. So how'd she come to be alone? I don't know, but it seems like she doesn't want to be around anybody else. People try and help her out. Somebody helps her with her leg here with this like artificial leg part at the beginning, but she has the opportunity to stay in a fairly safe situation, it seems like, but yet she's on the move, but she doesn't seem to have any specific destination. She encounters some various people, but she keeps wanting to kind of be on her own. I think it's just the fact that she has said goodbye to too many people. based on kind of what I've heard happened in the video game. So she's had to say goodbye to too many times, seen too many deaths and stuff, and that's kind of where our main character is. It's fairly decent. I mean, the illustrations are okay. It's a bit dark. I mean, obviously dark in terms of the situation, but I mean also the artwork sometimes is a little bit hard to see. There are sometimes where the dialogue seems cut off and abrupt, and I'm like, wait, what was that part? What, I had to go back a couple times to see, like, what just happened? A little jumpy, I guess is the best way to describe it. If the second one comes along, I still will pick it up. I'm intrigued enough for where this one ended to want to know more of the story. But I think you'd kind of want to know at least a bit, or at least check out YouTube and kind of watch those things before you probably pick this one up to kind of have an idea, a little bit more depth behind this character. I saw enough, I think, just to make me kind of, care about her and what's going to happen to her. But yeah, I would recommend at least seeing some of that before you maybe pick this up, or you just have to be a really true zombie graphic novel fan. So that's pretty much everything I've finished. Like I said, I had the manga before, and then these 4 items. Moving on to what I'm currently reading. I think I mentioned this on one of my, or maybe I didn't. I kind of felt like in terms of summer, wanting to read a big, thick kind of book, get my teeth sink into something like with some depth to it. And I did with To Serve Them All My Days, which I'd mentioned previous reading vlogs. That was a huge chunker that I finished reading and really enjoyed. And then I watched a BBC production on YouTube. It's like, I think 6, I forgot how many parts now. It's been a while, but it was several parts that you could watch, and it's all available on YouTube. Really, really good book, and the show was good as well. I'm now back to picking up something kind of big, chunky. I picked up the Bounty trilogy, and this is by Charles Nordhoff and James Norman Hall. This particular one, they call it the Wyeth edition because there are illustrations throughout the book by N.C. Wyeth. That happens to be one of them. I think I mentioned this book in terms of one of the ones I was thinking about picking up last time, but then I went with the other book, so now I'm delving into this one. I'm about there. So this is a trilogy. So you have Mutiny on the Bounty. Then you have Men Against the Sea, where you're following Lieutenant Bligh as after the mutiny of the ship, and he's sent off with his men on a ship to, most people don't think he's going to make it. And then Pitcairn's Island is apparently what takes place after the mutineers are on their own island. So really, really enjoying the book so far. In fact, I even kind of picked up, borrowed this from work, The Bounty. This is loosely based on that storyline. This is with Mel Gibson as Fletcher Christian and Anthony Hopkins as Lieutenant Bligh. Really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I haven't seen this in so long. I think there's another version out there too. This is like the remake of it, but very, very good. And I'm really enjoying sinking my teeth into this. And then for my audiobook, I didn't have a physical copy at the time, and then I was just kind of looking to spend an audio credit, and I came across this particular one, and I've since gone and picked up a copy of the book just to kind of reference a little bit with it. But this is The Girl with a Louding Voice by Abidari, I think is how you pronounce her name. I do apologize. This was her debut novel, and it came out, when did it come out? Sorry, the light is fading. I have to speed up this a little bit. This came out in 2020, and the audiobook is absolutely beautiful. The narrator does an amazing job, and we follow Aduni, our main character. She's a Nigerian girl. She's 14 years old. Her best friend was her mom. She has a older brother. No, I think an older and a younger brother. She has 2 brothers. Anyway, and then her father. And when her mother passes away, she's devastated. Like I said, she was her best friend, and she kind of helped support the family. I think the father suddenly cannot afford the community rent and food on the table, and he ends up giving his daughter away in marriage to a much older man, almost older than he himself, who's already got 2 wives with multiple kids. It's like she's a commodity to help pay the rent. Her bride money will pay the rent and food and put food on the table. But it doesn't seem to matter what her choices are. She always wanted to pursue her education. It's what her mom always said, that education gives you a voice. But she didn't simply want a voice. She wanted a louding voice, something to uplift other people, educate other people. She wanted to make a difference. And that's just pulled away from her. And she's, you know, sent off in marriage at 14 years old to this older man. I mean, it's shocking. And we follow this girl as she still tries to maintain hope. She ends up, due to circumstances, ending up working as a housemaid for this other woman. And we just, she goes through some really tough situations, and how she's constantly trying to better herself. You kind of hear in the language as the story is being told from her first person perspective, and the narrator, that you can hear it in her speech patterns, how they're improving, and she's kind of trying to learn wherever she can to improve her English, to improve her life. And it's just absolutely beautiful. I'm sure reading it would be just as beautiful, but I highly recommend the audio if you can get your hands on it. Get your ears on it. Beautifully read. And so anyway, that's where I'm at right now. That particular one, I am about 200 and page 235. So I've got maybe a quarter of it left to go, and I'm absolutely loving it. Highly recommend that one. So anyway, that's what I've read, what I'm reading, what I'm doing. Hope you guys are finding something really interesting to read, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.